Imagine, if you will, a scene painted with the softest pastels of expectation and joy. Sunlight streams through large windows, illuminating a room adorned with delicate blue and pink ribbons, tiny booties, and mountains of meticulously wrapped gifts. The air is thick with the sweet scent of cake and the murmur of happy chatter, punctuated by bursts of laughter. This is Sarah's baby shower, a celebration of new life, a testament to love, and a beacon of hope for a future she believed was perfectly laid out before her. Sarah, radiant in a flowing maternity dress, her belly a beautiful testament to the miracle growing within, glows with an ethereal joy. Her eyes sparkle as she accepts congratulations, hugs her dearest friends, and shares anecdotes about her pregnancy journey. Every touch, every smile, every whispered well-wish felt like a confirmation of the beautiful life she and her husband Mark had built together. Mark, handsome and outwardly devoted, stood by her side, his arm often around her waist, his smile seemingly just as wide, just as genuine. He played the part of the doting husband, the proud father-to-be, to absolute perfection. He mingled, he joked, he toasted to their impending arrival, his performance flawless, utterly convincing to everyone present. Everyone, that is, except for one person who was not yet in the room, but whose presence was about to shatter this picturesque facade into a million irreparable pieces. Sarah and Mark. Their story began like many others, with a chance encounter that blossomed into a whirlwind romance. They met at a mutual friend's barbecue, a casual summer evening that somehow spiraled into endless late-night conversations, shared dreams, and an undeniable connection. Mark was everything Sarah had ever dreamed of, charming, ambitious, incredibly attentive, and possessing a wit that could disarm anyone. Sarah, with her kind heart, infectious laugh, and unwavering optimism, was the perfect complement to his sometimes intense personality. Their wedding was a fairy tale, a day filled with promises whispered under a canopy of stars, vows exchanged with tears in their eyes, and an absolute certainty that they had found their forever. They built a life together, brick by brick, dream by dream. A cozy home, a comfortable routine, and the unspoken understanding that they were a team, an unbreakable unit against the world. For years, their marriage was a beacon. Friends looked to them, admiring their unwavering support for each other, their seemingly effortless harmony. They traveled, they pursued their careers with equal fervor, and they always came back to each other, their bond strengthening with every shared experience. The only missing piece, they both agreed, was a child. And then, after months of trying, of hope and disappointment, the little blue line appeared. Sarah was pregnant. The news had been met with an outpouring of joy, a rush of emotions that only prospective parents can truly understand. Mark had swept Sarah into his arms, spinning her around their living room, his laughter echoing with genuine happiness. They cried together, made plans, painted a nursery, devoured parenting books, and spoke for hours about the kind of parents they would be, the values they would instill, the love they would shower upon their child. This baby, their baby, was the culmination of their love, the next chapter in their perfect story. Sarah felt complete, utterly content, and more in love with Mark than ever before. She saw him as her rock, her partner, the father of her child, the man who would stand by her through thick and thin. Little did she know, the foundation of that rock had already begun to crumble, silently, treacherously beneath her feet. The baby shower itself was Sarah's vision brought to life. Her best friend Emily and her sister Lisa had meticulously organized every detail, but Sarah had been deeply involved, her nesting instincts in full swing. She had chosen the theme, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, the menu, the guest list. Every person in that room was someone she loved, someone who had been a part of her journey, someone she trusted implicitly. And among them, Mark, her husband, the co-star of this entire beautiful production. The irony, the sheer, gut-wrenching irony of him standing there, basking in the glow of collective happiness and love, knowing the monstrous secret he harbored, was a cruel twist of fate that was almost too much to bear. But bear it he did, with a smile fixed firmly on his face, a mask of normalcy and contentment that would soon be ripped away. Let's rewind a little, peel back the layers of this seemingly idyllic life and expose the rot that had been festering beneath the surface. Mark, what possessed a man who had everything? A loving, beautiful wife, a successful career, a child on the way, to jeopardize it all for a fleeting thrill? Was it boredom, a midlife crisis manifesting early, a deep-seated insecurity he masked with charm, or simply a profound lack of character, a moral compass utterly broken? The affair began subtly, as most do. It wasn't a grand, dramatic movie scene. It was a slow, insidious creep into the sanctity of his marriage. Mark had met Chloe at a conference. She was a colleague from a different department, bright, witty, and undeniably attractive. Their initial interactions were professional, then friendly, evolving into shared lunches, after-work drinks, and eventually late-night texts that lingered a little too long, held a little too much double meaning. Sarah was in the early stages of her pregnancy then, often tired, sometimes nauseous, and completely consumed by the miracle unfolding within her. Mark, instead of embracing this new phase with his wife, found himself drawn to the excitement, the novelty, the ego boost that Chloe offered. Chloe, for her part, was initially unaware of the full extent of Mark's marital situation. Or so she claimed. He had painted a picture of a strained marriage, a wife who was distant, unhappy, and uninterested. A classic cheater's narrative designed to elicit sympathy and justify his deplorable actions. He conveniently omitted the part about the impending baby, the dreams, the shared life, the vows. He presented himself as a man trapped, a victim of circumstance, seeking solace and understanding. Chloe, flattered by his attention, drawn to his charisma, and perhaps a little naive, fell for it. She saw him as a wounded soul, someone she could heal, someone who truly saw her. The affair escalated quickly. Secret dinners, clandestine weekends away under the guise of business trips, stolen moments in empty offices. Each lie Mark told Sarah was a brick in a wall of deceit, a wall that grew higher and thicker with every passing week. He became adept at juggling two lives, a master of deception. He would kiss Sarah goodbye in the morning, tell her he loved her, and then spend his day exchanging intimate messages with Chloe, planning their next rendezvous. He would come home, listen patiently to Sarah talk about baby names or nursery decor, all while the scent of Chloe's perfume subtly clung to his clothes, or a text from her buzzed silently in his pocket. The guilt, if it existed at all, was a fleeting shadow, easily dismissed by the thrill of the forbidden, the ego gratification, the escape from the perceived pressures of impending fatherhood. He justified it all to himself, perhaps believing he deserved this happiness, this excitement, before settling into the perceived monotony of family life, a common, tragic rationalization of men who betray. He saw Sarah's pregnancy not as a shared journey, but as a burden, a responsibility that was slowly suffocating his freedom. A truly despicable way to view the woman carrying his child. Chloe, meanwhile, was becoming more deeply entangled. She had fallen in love with Mark, or at least with the version of him he presented. The loving, attentive, exciting man who claimed to be desperately unhappy in his marriage. But as Sarah's pregnancy progressed, as her belly grew more prominent, the truth became harder for Mark to conceal. There were slip-ups, accidental mentions of the baby, fleeting moments of panic in his eyes. Chloe, a smart woman, began to put the pieces together. She started asking questions, demanding answers. Mark, cornered, finally admitted the full extent of his deception. He confessed that Sarah was not just his wife, but she was pregnant, very pregnant, and the baby shower was fast approaching. Chloe was devastated, furious, and deeply humiliated. She'd been lied to, manipulated, used. She wasn't just the other woman, she was the unwitting accomplice in a monstrous betrayal. The man she loved, the man who had promised her a future, was a deceitful monster, a coward who couldn't even be honest about the most fundamental aspects of his life. Her heart was broken, yes, but her pride was shattered, and a cold, hard resolve began to form within her. She wouldn't be just another secret, another discarded mistress. She would make him pay. She would ensure he faced the consequences of his actions, not in the shadows, but in the glaring, unforgiving light of public humiliation. While this drama unfolded behind closed doors, Sarah remained blissfully, tragically unaware. Her world revolved around her growing baby. She spent hours poring over baby books, picking out tiny outfits, meticulously planning the nursery. Every kick, every flutter, every ultrasound image filled her with immeasurable joy and anticipation. She felt tired, yes, and sometimes overwhelmed by the physical changes, but her emotional state was one of profound happiness and love. She trusted Mark implicitly. He was her husband, her partner, the father of her child. How could she ever suspect such a profound betrayal? There were moments, of course, fleeting shadows that momentarily dimmed her bright outlook. Mark's late nights, which he attributed to demanding projects at work. His occasional distraction, which she rationalized as stress. His phone, always face down, always guarded. A faint, unfamiliar scent on his clothes that he quickly explained away as a colleague's perfume. Sarah, ever the optimist, always found a logical explanation, always gave him the benefit of the doubt. She was pregnant, her hormones were raging. Maybe she was just being overly sensitive, overly anxious. She dismissed her instincts, pushed away the tiny seeds of doubt, choosing instead to believe in the man she loved, in the sanctity of their marriage, in the beautiful future they were building. She wanted to believe, needed to believe, that her life was perfect, that her family was whole. Her friends and family, too, saw nothing amiss. Mark was charming, attentive, and seemingly devoted. He was always there for Sarah's appointments, always ready with a comforting hand, a reassuring smile. He played his part so flawlessly that no one, not even Sarah's sharp-eyed sister Lisa or her perceptive best friend Emily, suspected a thing. They saw a loving couple, eagerly awaiting their first child, a picture of domestic bliss. This collective blindness, born of trust and affection, only served to deepen the eventual shock and horror. As the baby shower approached, the tension in Mark's life became almost unbearable. He was trapped between two women, two lives, both on a collision course. He tried to appease Chloe, to convince her to stay silent, promising to leave Sarah after the baby was born, a promise he had no intention of keeping. He tried to rationalize, to beg, to manipulate. But Chloe was beyond reason, beyond manipulation. Her anger had solidified into an unshakable resolve. She was tired of his lies, tired of being his dirty little secret. She wanted justice, and she wanted it served publicly, dramatically, and irrevocably. The baby shower, the ultimate symbol of Mark's hypocrisy and Sarah's innocence, presented the perfect stage for her grand unveiling. Chloe meticulously planned her entrance, her words, her timing. She wasn't seeking reconciliation, she was seeking retribution. She wanted to expose Mark for the coward he was, to shatter his perfect facade, to make him feel a fraction of the pain he had inflicted upon her and, unknowingly, upon Sarah. She gathered her evidence, screenshots of their intimate texts, photos of them together, even a small symbolic memento of their affair. This wasn't just about anger, it was about ensuring that there was no room for denial, no way for Mark to spin the narrative, no escape from the truth. She knew the devastation she would cause, the collateral damage to Sarah, but in her pain and rage, she felt it was a necessary evil, a bitter pill that Mark and perhaps Sarah needed to swallow. The truth, she believed, no matter how cruel, was always better than a lie. And in this case, the truth was a loaded gun, pointed directly at Mark's carefully constructed world. The day of the baby shower dawned bright and clear, a cruel irony for the storm that was about to break. The house buzzed with activity, a symphony of joy and anticipation. Sarah, her hair professionally styled, her makeup subtly enhancing her natural glow, moved through the rooms, a vision of maternal happiness. She greeted guests, opened gifts, laughed at the silly games Emily and Lisa had organized. Her mother, her aunts, her closest cousins, every woman who had shaped her life was there, showering her with love and blessings. Mark, ever the dutiful husband, hovered nearby, refilling drinks, making small talk, his smile a little too wide, his eyes darting around the room a little too frequently. He was a man on edge, a man performing the role of his life, hoping against hope that his carefully guarded secret would remain just that. The atmosphere was electric, filled with stories of motherhood, advice for Sarah, and endless oohs and ahs over tiny onesies and adorable stuffed animals. Sarah sat in a beautifully decorated chair, a literal queen for the day, surrounded by the people who loved her most. She opened gifts, exclaiming with delight over each thoughtful present, a tiny pair of blue shoes, a handmade blanket, a stack of classic children's books. Each gift was a tangible representation of the love and support surrounding her, a promise of the wonderful life awaiting her and her baby. She felt cherished, adored, and utterly secure in her world. And then, as the last gift was opened, as Sarah thanked everyone with a heartfelt speech as the cake was being cut, the front door, which had been left slightly ajar to welcome latecomers, slowly, dramatically swung open. A hush fell over the room. All eyes turned towards the entrance. Standing framed in the doorway, a figure emerged, starkly out of place amidst the pastel decor and joyous faces. It was Chloe. She was dressed not in a celebratory dress, but in a simple dark outfit, her face devoid of makeup, her eyes burning with a cold, unwavering fury. Her presence was like a sudden, chilling draught sweeping through a warm room, a discordant note in a beautiful melody. A few guests, those who recognized her from Mark's workplace, gasped, a ripple of unease spreading through the crowd. Sarah, still holding a slice of cake, frowned, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. Mark, who had been laughing at a joke, froze, his face draining of all color, his eyes wide with unadulterated terror. He knew the jig was up. His worst nightmare had just walked through the door. Chloe took a slow, deliberate step into the room, her gaze sweeping across the stunned faces, finally settling on Mark, then on Sarah. Her voice, when it came, was clear, steady, and chillingly devoid of emotion. "Hello, everyone," she began, her eyes locked on Mark's terrified ones. "I apologize for interrupting this beautiful celebration. But there's something Mark forgot to tell you all, something I think Sarah especially deserves to know." A collective gasp filled the room. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with dawning horror. Her sister Lisa rushed to her side, a protective arm instantly around her. Mark, finally finding his voice, albeit a strangled one, stammered, "Chloe, what are you doing? This isn't the time, please." But Chloe was not to be deterred. She held up her phone, displaying a series of images and texts on the screen for everyone to see. "This," she announced, her voice rising slightly, "is Mark, your husband Sarah, and this," she scrolled through the images, showing intimate photos of her and Mark, texts detailing their secret rendezvous, declarations of love, "is me, his girlfriend, his lover, for the past year." The words hung in the air, heavy, suffocating, utterly devastating. The room erupted into a cacophony of gasps, whispers, and cries of outrage. The delicate pastel decorations, the joyous music, the sweet scent of cake. It all suddenly felt grotesque, a cruel mockery of the truth. Sarah, her face now ashen, her body trembling, stared at the images, then at Mark. Her eyes, once sparkling with joy, were now filled with a crushing disbelief, a raw, primal pain. "Mark," she whispered, her voice barely audible, a heartbreaking plea for denial, for reassurance that this was a terrible, nightmarish joke. Mark, caught in the headlights, stammered, "Sarah, honey, it's not what it looks like. She's lying. She's crazy." But his words were weak, unconvincing, drowned out by Chloe's unwavering resolve. "Lying?" Chloe scoffed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "Am I lying about the nights you spent at my apartment while your pregnant wife was home alone? Am I lying about the promises you made me, the promises to leave her, to build a future with me? Am I lying about our trip to Cabo last month, while you told Sarah you were on a business retreat?" Each word was a dagger, twisting deeper into Sarah's heart. She clutched her swollen belly, a silent instinct to protect the innocent life within her from the venomous truth. Tears streamed down her face, not soft, gentle tears, but wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. Her sister Lisa and best friend Emily were by her side in an instant, holding her, whispering reassurances, but their own faces reflected a mixture of shock, anger, and profound pity. The guests, once a picture of collective joy, were now a tableau of stunned outrage. Some women gasped, covering their mouths, others openly wept for Sarah. Men glared at Mark, their faces contorted with disgust and anger. One of Sarah's uncles, a burly man with a protective streak, took a menacing step towards Mark, his fists clenched, but was held back by others. Mark, seeing his carefully constructed world implode around him, finally snapped. He lunged at Chloe, attempting to snatch her phone, his face contorted with rage and desperation. "You bitch! You ruined everything!" he roared, no longer playing the part of the devoted husband, but revealing the ugly, desperate man beneath. But Chloe was ready. She easily sidestepped him, her eyes still fixed on Sarah. "He ruined everything, Sarah," she stated, her voice now softer, laced with a strange mixture of pity and accusation. "He ruined everything the moment he decided his vows meant nothing, the moment he decided to lie to both of us. He's a coward, Sarah, and you deserve so much more." With that, Chloe turned, her mission accomplished, and walked out of the house, leaving behind a scene of utter devastation. Her exit was as dramatic and deliberate as her entrance, a final punctuation mark on a sentence of betrayal. The silence that followed her departure was deafening, broken only by Sarah's heart-wrenching sobs. The baby shower, meant to be a celebration of life and love, had become a funeral for a marriage, a public execution of trust. Mark stood alone, abandoned by the guests who now stared at him with contempt, his face a mask of shame and fury. Sarah collapsed into Emily's arms, her body racked with pain. The physical shock of the revelation was immense. Her perfect world had shattered. Her future, once so clear and bright, now lay in a million jagged pieces at her feet. The baby, her innocent baby, was now entering a world tainted by betrayal, by a father's unforgivable deceit. The remaining guests quickly dispersed, their shocked whispers echoing through the now empty, desolate rooms. Emily and Lisa helped Sarah to the couch, gently wiping her tears, offering her sips of water. Her mother sat beside her, stroking her hair, her own eyes filled with tears of sorrow and anger. Mark, finding himself completely isolated, tried to approach Sarah to offer some pathetic excuse, some hollow apology. "Sarah, please let me explain," he began, his voice choked with what might have been regret, or perhaps just self-pity. But Sarah, through her tears, looked at him with an expression of pure, unadulterated disgust. "Explain what, Mark?" she choked out, her voice raw with pain. "Explain the pictures. Explain the texts. Explain how you could stand here, smiling, pretending while you were doing this behind my back, while I was carrying our child." Her words cut him to the quick, though he deserved every single one. There was no explanation, no justification that could ever erase the images seared into her mind, the feeling of utter betrayal that now consumed her. The man she loved, the father of her child, was a stranger, a monster wrapped in a charming facade. The aftermath of that day was a blur of pain, anger, and despair for Sarah. The baby shower, meant to be a joyous milestone, became the day her world ended. She spent the next few days in a haze, barely eating, barely sleeping, the images of Mark and Chloe, Chloe's words, replaying endlessly in her mind like a macabre film. Her family rallied around her, providing a shield against the inevitable questions, the gossip that would surely spread like wildfire. The immediate fallout was brutal. Mark was banished from the house, his belongings packed by Emily and Lisa and left on the porch. Sarah couldn't bear to look at him, couldn't bear to be in the same room. The trust was utterly, irrevocably destroyed. There was no coming back from this. The news of the scandal spread rapidly through their social circles, then through Mark's workplace. The public humiliation he had so desperately tried to avoid became his reality. His colleagues, his friends, his family, all knew. His carefully cultivated image of a successful, devoted family man was shattered, replaced by the grim reality of a cheating husband, a betrayer of trust. The whispers followed him. The judgment was palpable. His career, once on a rapid upward trajectory, stalled, then began to decline. The professional world, while sometimes forgiving of personal indiscretions, rarely tolerates blatant deceit, especially when it becomes a public spectacle. His reputation was in tatters. For Sarah, the pain was compounded by her pregnancy. The stress, the emotional turmoil, the sheer heartbreak took a heavy toll on her physically. Her doctor advised bed rest, concerned about the impact on the baby. She spent weeks trying to process the magnitude of Mark's betrayal, not just to her, but to the innocent life she carried. How could he have been so selfish, so cruel? How could he have jeopardized their future, their family, their child, for a cheap thrill? The questions tormented her, robbing her of peace. The divorce proceedings began almost immediately. Sarah, with the unwavering support of her family and an excellent lawyer, filed for divorce. Mark, humbled and cornered, initially tried to fight, to negotiate, to save face. But the evidence Chloe had provided, coupled with his own admissions, left him with no ground to stand on. The divorce was messy, painful, and financially complicated. But Sarah was determined to sever all ties, to cleanse her life of his toxic presence. She wanted nothing from him but his absence and the necessary financial support for their child. The birth of her baby, a beautiful, healthy boy she named Leo, was a bittersweet moment. Sarah held her son in her arms, tears streaming down her face, tears of overwhelming love for her child, but also tears of sorrow for the broken dream of a complete family. Leo was her light, her reason to heal, her anchor in a stormy sea. He was a symbol of hope, a testament to her strength, a promise of a brighter future, even if it was one she would navigate alone. Mark was present for the birth, a stoic, silent figure in the background, a shadow of the man he once was, or rather, the man Sarah believed him to be. His presence was a stark reminder of the wreckage he had caused, a painful juxtaposition to the miracle unfolding before them. He offered apologies, remorse, but they fell on deaf ears. The chasm between them was too wide, too deep to ever be bridged. Chloe, the catalyst for this dramatic unraveling, eventually faded from the public eye. Her act of revenge, while undeniably effective, came with its own set of consequences. She faced judgment, not just for having an affair with a married man, but for the dramatic public exposure. Some saw her as a hero, a truth-teller. Others saw her as vindictive, cruel, a woman who reveled in causing pain. She lost her job, unable to continue working in the same department as Mark, and the whispers followed her too. Her life, once intertwined with Mark's, became a solitary journey, forever marked by the choices she made. Did she find peace? Did the revenge feel satisfying? Perhaps for a fleeting moment, but the long-term emotional toll of such a dramatic act is rarely a path to true happiness. She too was a victim of Mark's deceit, but her response, while understandable in its rage, left her scarred as well. Mark's life spiraled downwards. His career never recovered. He became estranged from many of his friends and even some family members who couldn't forgive his actions. He was forced to move, to start over in a new city, but the shadow of his past followed him. The shame, the regret, the knowledge that he had destroyed his family and tarnished his reputation became a constant companion. He saw Leo regularly, as mandated by the divorce settlement, but their relationship was strained, shadowed by the deep pain he had inflicted on Leo's mother. He became a cautionary tale, a living embodiment of the devastating consequences of betrayal. He lost everything, his wife, his family, his reputation, his self-respect, all for a brief, illicit affair. The years that followed were a testament to Sarah's resilience. She rebuilt her life piece by painful piece. She found solace in her son, in her work, in the unwavering support of her true friends and family. She learned to trust again, slowly, cautiously, but never with the same blind faith. She became stronger, wiser, a fierce protector of her son and her peace. She realized that while Mark's betrayal had shattered her world, it had also freed her from a lie, allowing her to build a life based on authenticity and genuine love, albeit a different kind of love than she had once envisioned. She understood that true strength wasn't in avoiding pain, but in enduring it, processing it, and emerging from it with an even greater sense of self. This story, like so many others in the annals of infidelity, serves as a stark reminder of the devastating power of betrayal. It's not just about a broken heart, it's about shattered trust, destroyed families, and reputations irrevocably stained. It's about the ripple effect of selfish choices, the collateral damage that extends far beyond the immediate parties involved. It's about the profound disrespect for vows, for commitment, for the very foundation of a relationship built on love and faith. Was Chloe justified in her actions? It's a question that ignites endless debate. Some would argue that exposing a cheater, particularly one who so cavalierly disregarded his pregnant wife, is a righteous act, a necessary blow against deceit. Others might contend that the public humiliation, especially at such a vulnerable event as a baby shower, was an act of cruelty, causing undue pain to an innocent party. There is no easy answer, no clear-cut moral high ground in the messy aftermath of betrayal. What is undeniable is that Chloe's actions, born of her own pain and fury, brought a deeply hidden truth into the light, forcing all involved to confront the stark reality of Mark's deceit. She chose to be a force of reckoning rather than a silent victim, and in doing so, she irrevocably altered the course of several lives. The story of Sarah, Mark, and Chloe is a complex tapestry woven with threads of love, lies, anger, and ultimately resilience. It forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about human nature, about the fragility of trust, and the profound consequences of our choices. It reminds us that appearances can be deceiving, that even the most perfect facade can crumble under the weight of secrets. And it serves as a powerful testament to the strength of those who endure unimaginable heartbreak, who pick up the pieces of their shattered lives, and who, against all odds, find a way to heal and move forward. Sarah's journey from blissful ignorance to devastating betrayal, and finally to a place of strength and independence, is a testament to the enduring human spirit. She lost a husband, but she gained herself, and a profound understanding of what truly matters. If this story resonated with you, if it sparked a conversation or made you reflect on the complexities of trust and betrayal, please consider subscribing to our channel and giving this video a like. We bring you these raw, unvarnished stories of infidelity and its aftermath, aiming to shed light on the darkest corners of human relationships. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We'd love to hear your perspective on this heartbreaking incident.